I'd like to stick to the presentation and maybe answer your questions later. Adele, welcome. I didn't see you there. God, civil society. It's such an incestuous community. I see everyone everywhere I go. And they're also part of our reference group. Maybe I should just talk quickly about our process of developing policies. And start with saying there's great political will from my minister. Thank you. So yes, we became a dysfunctional department, but we have been empowered since 2009 when Minister Mthethwa took over, and we're even more empowered now that Minister Mhleko's taken over. Please don't quote me in the media. This is not like political propaganda. So what do we do? I joined the Secretariat in 2012, given a white paper to review the white paper on safety and security. There was a draft already in process. And I'll speak to that just now, just to say that civil society is part of our reference group. So quite a few people in this year who advise us on methodology, tell us our work is rubbish, don't agree with us, fight with us, but we meet on a regular basis. So we have quarterly formal meetings, but we also meet on a regular basis in terms of methodology. I was supposed to speak on the CSFs and the white paper on the police today, but I chose to speak on the draft white paper on safety and security because, and I'm glad I did, because it covers a lot of the concerns that were raised this morning. And let me start, so I tend to digress a lot. So this draft white paper on safety and security, it was actually a review of the 1998 white paper on safety and security. And the review process identified, like I said, I took it over in 2012, and during that process we realized we were focusing too heavily on law enforcement. Because we were the Department of Safety and Security, we then became the Department of Police in 2009, and I fought hard to say our mandate is policing and we should be focusing on policing only, until Minister Mhleko has made it very clear with me, no, we will focus on safety as well. So for my sins, I've sat with 2 white papers over the last few years. So during the review of the 1998 white paper on safety and security, it was identified that there was a need for 2 distinct policy interventions. One was a white paper on the police because there was no comprehensive policing policy. And then the other one was a white paper on safety and security that needed to be implemented, and the shift needed to be away from law enforcement. The white paper, 1998 white paper on safety and security focused a lot on law enforcement because it was the Department of Police's paper. So what we decided is that we needed these 2 policy. Now the white paper on safety and security focuses on an integrated, sorry, maybe I should just stop. I need to acknowledge the Consortium on Crime and Prevention Violence because they are the authors of the white paper on safety and security. So Sonia and Melanie there. So I feel like a cheat because I'm presenting on something that no, I'm not passing the buck. I'm willing to take responsibility for this paper. So yes, all Melanie's emails and phone calls to me have been driving me nuts, but I'm very excited. I'm very excited to say that we finally on the right path. So we have our law enforcement paper and then we have our safety paper. And this white paper on safety and security focuses on an integrated and developmental approach to safety in recognition that safety extends far beyond the purview of the police. And for us, this is very important, and the police love this because we are saying that safety is not just a policing responsibility, it's a whole of government approach. Now, the good news about this is that we started the review process in 2010, and then we developed a green paper because the state law advisors advised us that you can't have a white paper on the police if you didn't have a green paper on the police. So we took that process to, and I'll speak interchangeably, so please forgive me for that because it's just, you can't divorce the 2 papers from each other. So we then took advertised the green paper on the police for public comment, and we went on provincial consultation. We got a lot of criticism, I must add, and it's all been good criticism. So we've got a whole new white paper on the police. And the good news is that we presented both these white papers to the JCPS Cabinet Committee 2 weeks ago, and then last week to full Cabinet. So, and they have approved these 2 papers to be advertised for public comment. So it was supposed to be in today's Mail and Guardian. We didn't make the deadline, but it's in Sunday's papers, and I'll speak to that towards the end, Monday's papers and next Friday's newspapers. So please feel free to criticize. Melanie's taking responsibility for the one paper, and I'll take the responsibility for the other paper. But yes, so feel free, we advertise it for 30 days. If you want an extension, we are open to that as well. So please don't feel like obliged to force yourself to rush something. And we're looking for constructive criticism. So yes, so that's the good news for us. So I was happy to present this paper as well today. Now, just in terms of this paper, and I promise to stick now to the presentation. So the white paper on safety and security speaks to the following areas. It's got a vision, an aim and purpose, which I'll talk to, a rationale for a new safety and security, why are we drafting a new safety and security paper. And then we got some contextual background on understanding safety, crime and violence prevention, the policy architecture impacting the white paper, and I'm glad my two colleagues are here. And I've presented their papers because it talks to those as well, and then the integrated approach to safety and security. Now, in terms of vision, we're saying that we want a society where all people live in safe environments. They play a role in creating and maintaining the safe environment. They feel safe from crime and violence and conditions that contribute to it, and have equal access and recourse to high quality of services when affected by crime and violence. In terms of the objective, we're saying that it's to provide an overarching policy for an integrated approach to safety and security, and to facilitate the creation of a sustainable, well-resourced implementation and oversight mechanism to coordinate, monitor, and evaluate and report on implementation of crime prevention priorities across all sectors. Now, since 1994, government policy has been articulated in two key documents. It's the 1996 National Crime Prevention Strategy and then the 1998 White Paper on Safety and Security. But there have been other initiatives from government in those the years after that. And I'm talking about the integrated criminal justice revamp, and there's been the National Crime Combating Strategy. So there's been a whole host of initiatives by government. Now, what we're saying that is it requires, we need an approach that is integrated and long-term, and I'll be repeating this a lot because we're emphasizing this a lot in the paper. An approach that is integrated and long-term is developmental and preventative, and it will increase safety of the people. And it extends beyond law enforcement. So we're not just focusing on law enforcement in this paper. Now, the NDP is the Bible of government. So whatever we've taken, we have in the white papers, the white paper on police and the white paper on safety and security is from chapter 12 of the NDP. And so it says that safety should be measured by the extent to which the most vulnerable in society feel and are safe from crime and violence and the conditions that breed it. And effective prevention of crime and violence requires a developmental life course approach that takes into account the full context of a person's life. And why I highlighted person's life is when we were presenting to the forums in government before we actually reached full cabinet, I think people were saying, but you're right, drafting a white paper on safety and security, where's the security element in this? And so we wanted to emphasize that, look, we are focusing on the individual and the area that they live in. Let's focus on that, just to ensure that people are and feel safe. But then we also, to appease them, we said, no, we are aligning it to the National Security Strategy. For those of you who don't know, Cabinet adopted the National Security Strategy in 2013, I think. And there's a huge implementation plan, and that's already being rolled out. And it's not something I will talk about, but just to say that we have aligned to the National Security Strategy, and which focuses on safety and security of the person, but it also looks at safety and security of the state. We started off by looking at definitions. What is safety? So we're saying that safety is the state of an area based on the real and perceived risk of victimization. Security, this is a definition in the National Security Strategy. It talks about maintenance and promotion of peace, stability, development, and prosperity, using state power, involving the protection of our people and their being free from fear and want, and the preservation of the authority and the territorial integrity of the state. I know it's a mouthful, but it's verbatim from the NSS. In terms of violence, violence is defined as the intentional use of physical force, power, threatened or actual, against oneself, another person, or against a group or community that either results in or has a likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. Melanie, that is a mouthful. Crime and violence prevention. We define that as strategies and measures that seek to reduce the risk of crimes occurring and their potential harmful effect on individuals and societies, including the fear of crime, by intervening to influence their multiple causes. Now, if you've studied criminology like I have, this is not a new chart. So what we're saying here that interventions have to be multi-sectoral, and it has to address the multiple influences that impact on violence. And we're looking at the individual risk factors, relationship risk factors, community risk factors, and macrostructural risk factors. And I won't go into detail on what each one entails. We're also looking at poverty, inequality, and crime. The MDP says that safety and security are directly related to socioeconomic development and equality, and requires an environment conducive to employment creation, improved education and health outcomes, and strengthened social cohesion. Now, in this regard, we're saying that relationships between crime and violence, poverty and inequality is complex. I don't have to tell this forum about the linkage because I've been presenting to government, so bear with me, please. It's the first time we're presenting to civil society, and that those living in poverty are most vulnerable to falling victims to crime, most at risk of engaging in crime, and usually least able to access the criminal justice system or victim support services. That societies reflecting high levels of inequality are most likely to be characterized by high levels of violence, and a developmental approach to safety must ensure that both macro and structural factors are addressed at the same time as addressing individual and community-level risk factors of crime. We're also looking at primary, secondary, and tertiary intervention, and it's suggesting that it's only through a combination of all three interventions in these prevention areas that safe communities can be achieved, and then we've described what primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention are. In terms of crime and violence, Melanie and her team have done a very good job of contextualizing crime and violence, and we've got quite a big section in the white paper on this. We're particularly focused on violent crime, murder and attempted murder, assault, GBH, and common assault, robbery with aggravating circumstances and common robbery, sexual offenses, illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, stock theft, gangsterism, children and youth, and drug and alcohol-related crimes. In terms of vulnerable groups, we're looking at women, children, youth, and the elderly, and the LGBTI community, and persons living with disabilities, I've repeated older persons. So all of the groups that are particularly vulnerable to violence. And the way that vulnerable experience safety must be understood within the context of the spaces they occupy, social, physical, and economic. The approach to combating violence and crime must address the specific nuances that speak to the needs of those within the designated categories of vulnerability. And then we were told by Cabinet that we need to include elements of human trafficking, so we are currently doing that. Now, the white paper locates various policy intents in an overarching comprehensive framework for safety and security, crime and violence. And while I don't have the IUDF here, we have an annexure at the back of the white paper that does cover the role of the IUDF. So relevant to the white paper are the Constitution, the National Development Plan, the National Security Strategy, the Integrated Social Crime Prevention Strategy of Social Development, and the white paper on families, also of social development, the Integrated Criminal Justice Review, and their 7-point plan, Community Safety Forum Policy, and then the two policies I mentioned earlier, the 1996 Crime Prevention Strategy and the 1998 White Paper on Safety and Security and the Victim Charter. Now, this is not just the list, it's just something that I've put onto the presentation, but I want to focus on the National Development Plan and Community Safety Forum Policy in the presentation. Now, in terms of the National Development Plan, I mentioned it's our Bible. Everything is based on that now. We're going forward with whatever has been said in the National Development Plan. So it recognizes that law enforcement approaches alone cannot address South Africa's crime problems. It's necessary to move from a narrow law enforcement approach to crime and safety, to identifying and resolving the root causes of crime. To achieve this, South Africa will have to mobilize state and non-state capacities at all levels, which requires an integrated approach with active citizen involvement and co-responsibility. This was one of the things the ministers highlighted with us, the participation of communities and citizen involvement. And then the NDP establishes building safer communities as a key objective. In terms of CSFs, we drafted a policy in 2011 that is, we're not the implementers of community safety forums. Municipalities are the implementers. Sorry, I'm looking that's out of the room. Municipalities are implementers of safe community safety forums. We monitor the implementation of community safety forums. So the CSF policy provides a framework for integrated localized safety planning and coordination at the sphere of local government that is aligned to national and provincial priorities. CSFs are based on the premise that increased cooperation and interaction will improve the functioning of the criminal justice system and delivery. They are designed to serve as a platform for integration and monitoring and the implementation of multi-sectorial crime prevention and community safety initiative within national and provincial priorities. And CSFs with community representation in the form of CPFs, that's the community police forums, will facilitate regular safety orders with civil society, develop safety strategies and plans aligned with national, provincial, and local priorities, and monitor and evaluate the implementation of safety programs. So it's a lot of work for CSFs, but they are going to be the implementing agents at local level. So in terms of what we've got into in the new 2015 white paper on safety and security, as we're calling it now, because we intend finalizing this whole process by December this year. So it provides a policy protocol for a comprehensive, aligned, single criminal justice system coordinating and management structure and an integrated approach to safety and security. And it entails the following. It's got a section on approaches, the themes, and I'll talk to these more a bit. The roles of national, provincial, and local government, location and ownership of the white paper, which was a big concern for me, but Cabinet spotted, so I'm very happy about that, and I'll talk to it as well. And then it talks to institutional arrangements, implementing mechanisms, and monitoring and evaluation. Now, the approach advocated by the white paper recognizes the importance of intersectoral and intergovernmental consultation, cooperation and collaboration, effective and integrated service delivery and community engagement and accountability at the local, provincial, and national sphere to achieve safe communities. The roles, and we're not just limited to this, but the roles of health and social development, education, and the criminal justice systems are important in addressing risk factors contributing to violence and unsafety. And the collection of reliable data, we're focusing a lot of this on the police, that you have to have collection of reliable data to inform evidence-based and intelligence-driven approaches as an essential component of a crime and violence prevention strategy. So the white paper rests on 6 themes, and underpinning each themes are general principles of equality in access, protection, and service, and commitment to high qualities of service. And that's the 6 themes are an effective criminal justice system, early intervention to prevent crime and violence and promote safety, victim support, effective and integrated service delivery for safety, security, and violence and crime prevention, safety through environmental design, active public and community participation. So I hope we've covered in these 6 themes everything. Patrick, you're smiling. We're waiting for your comments in particular, Patrick. In terms of roles of local government, so we're saying that national government will be responsible for budget planning, allocation, guidance and accountability, technical support and capacity building and implementation. That provincial government will develop provincial strategies and plans aligned to national strategic documents and plans, mobilize resources for programs, coordinate an intersectoral approach to program implementation, evaluate and support programs at local government level and establish partnerships, and that local government will establish community safety forums, ensure that IDPs take safety and security into account, ensure intergovernmental alignment of local strategies, ensure effective enforcement of bylaws on programs and information dissemination. And then I've put in the bullet point because, as I said, Minister highlighted this last point that he wants community partnerships and active citizenry as key components to a sustainable safety strategy. Now, it may seem like there's lots of responsibilities. There's actually nothing new to all of these spheres. It's something that the government department or the spheres of government are currently doing. So we just want to emphasize it in the paper. Now, in terms of the location, we were having like quite big debates, Melanie and myself and Sean, about where this thing should be located. And so we've decided that ownership should be at the presidency, at the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. And I can tell you why, and the ministers bought into the idea, which I was very pleased about, because I thought I would get resistance from my minister, but also from the JCPS Cabinet Committee, but also the full Cabinet. And nobody's raised an eyebrow at this. And I'm very glad, because my argument with the minister was that one minister doesn't have line function authority over other ministers. So one minister can't own a white paper on safety and security, especially when it comes to budget planning and those kind of things. So I think they're happy that we are suggesting that it be now the baby of the presidency, just like the National Development Plan. So I'm glad to say there was no objection to this location. Yes, I know there's going to be a lot of planning around how and where and what, but we're starting off with the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and they have also bought into the idea. And the institutional arrangements will be guided by the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act of 2005, the need for a mechanism which is representative of all relevant implementing departments, and the roles of and responsibilities of the different spheres of governments. The implementation of the white paper is supported through the creation of national safety and crime and violence prevention centers. Now, if you recall, the 1996 National Crime Prevention Strategy spoke about national crime prevention centers. We want to bring that idea back. We think this is very important in terms of implementation, monitoring, evaluation. So we'd like to see centers established. The National Center will provide technical expertise, seed funding, research into best practice and evaluation of agreed plans of action that promote community safety. And the National Center will interact with the Civilian Secretariat for Police at national and provincial spheres, as well as community safety forums within the sphere of local government. Initially, I thought we should divorce ourselves from this, but then we realized that, look, we are monitoring and oversight body for national government as well as at provincial level, so we should be playing a big role in it. So we run constant interaction with the centers. I'm at the end. Okay. In terms, don't give me this. In terms of consultations, just to say that, look, we would have liked at national level particularly to consult more, but we just thought that we would like to put the paper out for public comment, get the inputs, and then maybe incorporate and then workshop it more around national government. So we've been to the JCPS. JCPS stands for Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster. That's the Development Committee. It's basically a bunch of technocrats who criticize all our work. and if you don't pass that level, you don't go to the JCPS Director General's cluster. So we've had good buy-in from them. They've asked us to at least consult with the presidency. We've done that, and there has been buy-in about the location of the white papers, we're happy to say. So we also presented to the JCPS Directors General cluster. The S should be in uppercase. They've also been very supportive of this process. We then went to Cabinet Committee for approval to advertise, and Cabinet Committee is the Deputy Minister sitting in the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster. And then last week we presented to full Cabinet with the President chairing, and there was full support for this because there is political, not only from my minister, but from ministers from across government. So once again, it's a whole of government approach. It's not just, and the Minister of Kabta was there as well, so he's quite supportive of this. So like I mentioned earlier, the two white papers will be advertised in this Sunday's papers, in the Sowetan, the New Age, the City Press, and then next week, Friday's Mail and Guardian. So there's 30 days for written submission, but like I said, you just have to email us to indicate you need more time. We want to go on national and then later provincial stakeholder workshops, and then we'll also have to go to the whole parliamentary process because Parliament has to adopt this before we go and Cabinet signs off on it. So once we present to Parliament, then or the portfolio committees, and then we'll resubmit through the whole DEFCOM, JCPS, Director General's cluster. So let me just tell you, Sean, I need to say this, that our policies don't just sit on the shelf. It used to. I told you we have now been empowered. Our policies have to be presented to the minister and signed off by the minister. Once it's signed off by the minister, the policing policies are handed over to the National Commissioner. She has to do an implementation plan. And the nice thing is that the portfolio committee requests the implementation plan as well. So we sit together with them as a task team, work on the implementation plan. They have to look at their budget and resources, so we can't do the implementation plan for them. In terms of this, it's going to be a whole of government approach, so there will be a task team established at national government level, hopefully spearheaded by the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. And then there's this reporting back on how far implementation is. And the portfolio committees of the last two administrations have been quite strong in ensuring that there's implementation. So yes, I want to emphasize that our policies don't just sit on the shelf. When I took this job over in 2012, I was very worried the policies were going to sit on the shelf, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that that does not happen. And just to tell you about all other policies that we develop next month, we will finalize the National Integrated Anti-Gang Strategy. Sorry, Sean, I'm just stealing some of the time. Which was also a portfolio committee initiative that was given to us. So it's a whole of government approach. It's not just us. We may be leading the process, but national government is drafting this in consultation with provinces. We're also looking at two gender-based violence policies. The one is looking at the identification and management of serial rape and serial murder, because we're arguing that it can't be serial rape and murder can't be identified through DNA linkages, that it goes beyond that, and we want police at police stations to be able to start identified linkages of serial murder and serial crime. And the other one is something that talks to performance management that was raised this morning. It's looking at the performance management system, but it's also looking at it's focused heavily on gender-based violence and sexual offences, because sexual offences currently is just one category. It's not disaggregated. So we're looking at those kind of issues already. And we got Lisa Vetted working on those two policies for us at the moment. So yes, so we suddenly see a lot of movement within our policy process, and we're quite excited about the next few months. Thank you very much.